how to play Black Forest. Special shout out to my friend Ryan for letting me borrow this game so I could teach it. Black Forest is a resource management and worker placement / movement game in which players are going to be taking their worker, and on the first turn they'll be placing it on the board. Every subsequent turn they're then going to be moving it around the board from what are called these sections, which are called villages, and within each villages you will place your worker on one of the spaces in between two of the spots, and those are called tradespeople. Each tradesperson on the board does something unique. I'm not going to explain what everyone does, but the back of the rulebook has a general outline of what every single tradesperson does, which is very handy. What makes this game unique is in regards to the resource management in this game. Every player, this game is set up for a 3-player game. I only have 1 player board set up, but each player board has 2 resource wheels on it. The left wheel here indicates your glass making wheel, and the right wheel is called your cooking wheel. What's important about this game is you'll notice that resources are tracked on these wheels, and the resources on the right, when you gain them, you will move them clockwise. And resources on the left, when you gain them, you will move them counterclockwise. So for example, this glass here is currently sitting at 0. If I gained 1 glass, I would move it 1 space counterclockwise to indicate that I have 1 glass. If I'm then spending 1 glass, I'll move it 1 space clockwise. That is the same for both wheels. Each wheel has 2 sections, a larger section here and a smaller section here. The larger section on each wheel are basic resources, and the smaller section are called refined resources. One of the most unique things about this game is these resource wheels allow you to convert basic resources into refined resources, and this actually happens automatically. The way the game describes it is it will happen automatically anytime the 0 space and the 3 space of a particular wheel is full. That's one way to describe it. I'm going to show you how it works conceptually. In this case, let's say I gain 1 quartz sand. So I'm going to move this quartz sand from 0 to 1. Once I've gained that, you'll now notice that the 0 space and the 3 space are now empty. And so this resource wheel actually will move, you'll see there's kind of an arrow on it, 1 space to the right. And so now I actually lost 1 of each of these type of resources, because you'll notice every resource went from 1, 2, or 3 down to 0, 1, or 2, but I did gain 1 glass. And so the way this game works is anytime on either resource wheel, the 0 and the 3 space are empty, the resource wheel will move to the right, and you will essentially lose 1 of each basic resource and gain 1 of each refined resource. The same thing would happen over here. If I were to gain, let's say 1, I believe this is called mead, I would then move this to the right, and I have effectively gained 2 of this resource here, which are called provisions, and I've also gained 1 of these resources here, which is called a commodity. This is kind of the unique way in which this game tracks resources and is a fundamental part to understand how this game works. So on a player's turn, there's a handy little player aid here. A player's turn takes place over effectively 3 steps. The first step is going to be optional, and that's going to be spend 1 commodity. So if you look at my board here, as I mentioned, this is called a commodity. On the board, you'll notice there are a bunch of different tradespeople. One of them specifically is this tradesperson here. And this one says, all other players gain 1 of the chosen resource, and you get 2 of that. So if I were to choose, for example, in this case, I could choose water, I would gain 2 water, 1, 2. Everyone else would gain a water. Well, to start my turn, I can spend a commodity on my player board by moving my commodity 1 down from 1 to 0. And then I can swap this specific tile, a tradesperson, with any tradesperson on the board. So maybe I'll swap it with this one here. It doesn't have to be where my worker is. It doesn't have to be where my workers are going. But part of the game allows me, every player on their turn can swap that tile with any other tradesperson on the board. Then, on every player's first turn, they're going to take their worker and put it out on the board. Again, it doesn't have to interact with the tile you just moved. You're going to put that worker on the board. On every subsequent turn that is not your first turn, you will then be taking this worker from where it is on the board and moving it to other places on the board. You'll notice that to move from here, from village to village, there's always a traveling cost of 1 provision. So that's something to keep in mind as you're thinking about making movements, is to get from here, from this village over to this village, it would cost a minimum of 2 provisions. So I'm going to take my worker, place it down on the board, and then I'm allowed to take the actions of one or both of the tradespeople that I am in between. Again, I'm not going to explain what every tradesperson does, but generally they're going to be giving you stuff. So this one would be giving me a pig, it looks like, or a cow. And then anytime you see red, that's going to be like in this case, spend a wood to gain 4 charcoal. Back to the player boards really quickly. A specific rule that's really important is involving gaining and spending resources from your player board. When you gain resources, you can only gain them on one of the 2 wheels. So if I were to gain 4 charcoal, I could not gain 2 here and 2 here. I would have to gain 4 on one of the 2 wheels. Another thing I didn't mention is there is brick off to the side. Brick is its own resource. All resources max out at 7. You can realize that as well by looking at these player boards. When you spend resources, you can spend them in any combination. So if I gained 4 charcoal, I could gain the 4. If I had to spend 4 charcoal and I had 4, I could spend 2 from this and 2 from that if I would like. So back to a player's turn. Optionally, you can spend 1 commodity, which is the blue resource here, to swap that tile with any tile on the board. You're then going to place your worker on the board on the first turn, or move your worker and pay any provisions costs to move them. Then you'll take 1 or both of the tradespeople's actions. It will then go to any other player's turns, moving along 1 turn at a time until the game is over. Importantly, when you move your worker, I mentioned this already several times, you have to pay provisions to move between areas. Secondly, when you land on a village where there is another player or players, you must pay those player or players 1 basic resource from your resource wheel. So if I were to land here, I would potentially pay this person, let's say, a water, and then they would gain a water. I'm paying to join that village. One specific type of action I want to cover involves this action here. If you were to use this tradesperson here, this action is build a building. That's one of the main actions of the game. You'll notice there are 3 building boards here. These building boards are laid out in some neat ways, but there are kind of 3 types of buildings. The blue buildings are going to be conversion actions that you can take effectively any time. You'll then see the grayish color buildings that'll give you like a one-time benefit. The kind of orangish, brownish colored buildings there are going to give you anytime bonus actions. And then finally, you will see that yellow buildings here will give you some end game points. So this symbol here is construct a building. Every building has a building cost. So for example, this one costs 3 wood, 2 water, and 3 charcoal. Again, you can spend those from any combination of your player boards. These boards are laid out, and where the left column costs 0 glass, 1 glass, and 2 glass. The theme of this game overall is glass making, so I want to talk about one more benefit, which is this, and that's increase your glass. I believe it's called increase your glass making level or something like that. This symbol here means on your player board here, you will see that we have what's called a glass making hut. When I get this benefit here, so this benefit would be either build a building or increase my glass making. I could increase my glass making by moving this up. If this ever reaches the top of this track here, this is called your estate. You actually gain a new kind of half estate that goes on your player board, and you'll notice it also comes with 2 forest tiles. So what you'll do is you'll actually take this, which is leveled up all the way, you'll place a minor estate next to your board, you'll fill it with 2 more forests, and then this will actually slide over here and go back down. And so you can keep doing this. If you ever get to the top again, you'll add another estate to your board, which allows you to have more spaces for buildings. The last thing I want to cover is involving your player board here. There are some anytime actions in the game that you can accomplish. We have what are called landscape tiles. These are called fields, these are called ponds, and then we also have pastures, which are areas where you can hold either 3 pigs or 3 cattle. Pastures specifically will hold animals and they're worth points at the end of the game. A pasture can only hold one type of animal. So if it has pigs, it can only hold pigs. If it has cattle, it can only hold cattle. And anytime action you can do on your turn is remove these from your board, specifically ponds, pastures, or fields. You can just remove from your board. If you ever build a building, you don't have space, you can take these off of your board and put them back in the supply. However, you're not allowed to take off forests. Forests can only be taken off by tiles that spend them. So for example, this tile here costs a forest to get a wood and build a building. The game will continue until one player gets their resource wheel essentially all the way rotated around. And once they get it rotated around, and these resources here, these are again called your provisions. When a player's provision finally touches this spot, every player, including that player, will get one more turn. And the last thing I didn't mention is on your turn, you can do what's called a job. And so in every area on your board, you can take the 2 actions you're next to, or every player board has this little, it's called a reminder token on it. And as soon as, I should back this up a little bit, as soon as this arrow touches this here, like that, if this player had gotten this arrow here, this unlocks a job. Jobs are located in several spots on the board. There are spots for jobs on most villages here. In the bottom left of the board, there is a stack of jobs. So when the first player unlocks a job, one of the jobs becomes available. And what you do is you flip over the job and you look at the symbol in the top left and you find the area on the board that has that matching symbol. So for example, here we have the axe. You'll notice the axe is up here in this village. So this job would then sit in this village. There are also some other job locations that are not in villages. So for example, if I pulled this one here, you'll notice this symbol here goes over here, not in a village. So on a player's turn, they can always swap this with another tile on the board, not the job tiles. They can then move to the village they want. Then they can take the 2 actions, 1 or 2 actions of the tradespeople, or if they're in a village that has a job, it doesn't matter what spot they land in, they can do the job instead. So in this case, this job requires you to discard 3 forest tiles off your board, but then you get a really big bonus. Anytime someone completes a job, they take that job and set it face down on their player board. They then grab the next job off the top of the stack and replace that somewhere else on the board. So in this case, you would look for this symbol on the board. And you would find it. I can't find it. It's in the top right here. So this is another job that is outside of a village. So that's another way for players to kind of use the resources they've gained, not necessarily build buildings, but build jobs. And more jobs will come out on the board as more players progress along their player boards. Again, the game will end as soon as someone's provision marker hits this spot. Every player, including that player, will get one more turn, and then players will sum up the end game points, which are, there are several different end game points. They come from buildings. They come from, for example, how far your player board on the right-hand side, your cooking wheel is pointing at the points here. Lots of different point conversions at the end of the game. But that is how you play Black Forest. I hope you all enjoy. This is kind of based on a game, or similar to a game called Glass Road by Uwe Rosenberg that came out several years ago. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope this was clear. Please leave any feedbacks you have for me in the comments, and I'll be happy to use those to improve in the future.